There are these universal attachment needs that I think were playing out in our parenting, of the needs that maybe our parents weren't so good about meeting for us.
Let's be honest, friends. Sometimes parenting can be the hardest challenge in our marriage. And did you know that 90% of divorces are initiated by women? And one of the top three leading causes is issues over parenting. Friend, if these challenges are coming up for you, first of all, you're not alone. Secondly, I'm so excited to offer you the wisdom today that came in my conversation with Rachael Maher, couples therapist, EFT specialist, and founder of Little Bear Counseling here in Bozeman, Montana. Her passion is for helping clients build a strong scaffolding for success in their relationship, and it's all based on the incredible evidence-based wisdom of emotion-focused therapy, EFT, and attachment science. I'm so glad to share Rachael's wisdom with you, as in our conversation, she shared with me how you can see what you actually have in common during your conflict and what's truly getting in the way of that conflict resolving, which is not usually all the surface stuff we think it is. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Sustainable Parenting Podcast. Let me tell you, friend, this place is different. We fill that gap between gentle parenting and harsh discipline that's really missing, to parent with kindness and firmness at the same time, and give you the exact steps to be able to parent in ways that are more realistic and effective, and for that reason, finally feel sustainable. Welcome.
I want couples to know that chances are they're a lot more aligned than they probably think. Um, and really, parenting is one of the highest stakes, occupations out there. And so it makes sense that we feel a tremendous amount of pressure, an
Yeah.
urgency to get it right in those high pressure moments. And so, under that degree of pressure, we revert to fight, flight, or freeze. And usually in couples, there's one person who's the fighter, and there's one who flees or freezes. And I have found that in talking with couples, the more that we can get to that level of the conversation,
Yeah.
the softer they can become with each other,
Yeah.
and the less threatening those high tension moments become, so that they can navigate through them and fall back on the strategy that they both agree on.
Yeah, I'm just like really interested for us to talk this through because I see this all the time. I just got off a call with a couple that this was exactly it. They're thinking they're in different camps. Like one is sort of the stereotypical overly gentle parenting oriented mom, and which is
Right,
often what I do see, and the dad is was raised with a very authoritarian style and is sort of like, look at me, I'm successful. Yeah, I may have had some
yeah,
emotional things to work out through the years, but like I'm doing well and I want my kid to do well.
right,
So what's so
right,
bad about that? What's so bad about just saying what they have to do? And
right,
and yet, like you say, I think it really does absolutely come down to fear. Fear on both
right.
sides that am I going to have an unsuccessful kid, or am I going to have an
Mm-hmm.
unloved or unnurtured in the emotional sense kid? What do you
Mm-hmm.
see that they have in common?
Well, I think you're nailing it. Let's back out, because most couples are coming in at the fight level of your parenting is wrong, mine is right. And if we stay with them at that level, they get stuck at that level. And so I like to zoom out and say, big picture. Let's paint a picture of what is it that you're both hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how hard it is actually for couples to talk about that. They want to talk about these very
Mm-hmm.
granular things. If I want my child to graduate with this GPA and at least play, however many sports or musical instruments and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And it's really hard again to zoom out and say, I want my child to be successful. I don't want them
Mm-hmm.
to struggle too much. I want them to be pro-social,
Yeah.
pro-relational.
Yeah, and positive discipline, I love. I often do these in my parenting workshops is start with a list of like, what are some characteristics or personality traits you'd love to
Ah, I
have in
like
your
that.
child when they're 25? And I always
Ah,
have
I love
found
that.
that lens to be so unique because, right, it's like also not only the granular about the sport or the grades, but it can be so immediate. I just want him to listen to me. Why won't he
Yeah.
listen? But
Yes.
then if you zoom
Yes.
out to 25, it's like, well, no, I don't want a 25-year-old who just listens. What is that really? I want him to
Right.
make wise choices. I want him to be a problem solver. I want him to take
Yes.
initiative. So then it like gets our scope on
Yes.
the right thing.
Absolutely. There's a lot of nervous system grounding that
Mm,
happens when you do actually engage in a joining conversation about a shared goal and a shared big picture vision.
mm,
And what I have found is that when we're grounded and when we feel like our partner understands us enough, then we feel safe enough to get into the granular and to disagree.
mm,
But until that happens, when we get into the granular right away, immediately we're usually at odds and our guard is up and we have a much harder time being curious and flexible.
hmm. So I can see how that kind of question of values clarification gets them to understand each other more, and that shared like understanding grows alignment.
Mhm.
Tell me more about the grounding then. What helps that happen?
I like to ask them to check in with each other of like, what does it actually feel like to feel on the same page in this way? Like
Mm,
taking stock of what is the relationship feeling like between the two of you.
mm,
Usually that's positive, sprinkled with some anxiety of like, I know this won't last. Um, and then, so really marinating in that, I encourage a lot of marination in that where you are together.
mm,
And then noticing what happens then when you start to bring the granular in. And if it starts to feel threatening, that just tells us we need to go really slow on this. And we need to ask ourselves, is this something we urgently need to fix? Or is this something we can kind of pick apart over the next few weeks very
mm,
slowly?
mhm.
Most things can take time. Like I love the example of like, I just want my kid to listen. Like, does that have to happen tonight?
Mhm.
Because newsflash, it probably isn't going to.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to dive even deeper into then the like regulation, like you're saying. Then, if we start to notice,
Mm-hmm.
okay, some of what I love what you're saying absolutely about needing to back up and be patient about how and when these things are going to be, quote, solved
Mm-hmm.
or resolved. And yeah, I'm interested. I do hear a lot of couples talk to me about like now I'm learning how to think about things differently, but I can't seem to get my body to react differently because of my own fight or
Mm-hmm.
flight, like childhood.
Right.
What about childhood is informing how they're both reacting and
Mm-hmm.
ways to shift from then the behavior management of how do we get the kid to listen and fight over who's right
Right.
about the right way to do that. We need to love him into it or we need to be stern enough into it. How do we shift
Yeah,
from behavior management to our own emotion regulation management?
totally. I think how we shift is when we're outside of the chaos. Um, don't try to do this in the chaos. It's too many balls up in the air. But when we're outside of the chaos, to really start asking ourselves, what am I afraid? What am I afraid is going to happen in this moment if I don't, whatever your strategy is, if I don't manage it, contain it, control it,
Mm,
or if I don't love enough, understand enough, comfort enough, what am I afraid is going to happen? So really asking ourselves, like, what will happen if I don't do the thing that I do that actually is causing friction in my relationship?
I love
And
that
that's something that
question.
oh, good, good. Um, and that is something that I encourage people to do on their own or with their therapist because their partner can get really triggered at this juncture.
Mm,
There can be a lot of defending and that sort of thing. But what am I afraid is going to happen?
mm,
And typically, what I hear is, I'm afraid my child is going to become me.
Mm,
which is really heartbreaking, right? Um,
whatever those wounds
a
may
really,
be.
I love your example of kind of like the permissive mom and maybe more rigid authoritarian father, because that is such a common dynamic. And usually for those more rigid authoritarian types, it's one, I was raised this way and I turned out fine. So there's that. But underlying that is like, I don't know how else to do it. I just don't know what to
Hmm.
do.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm afraid that if I change, my child will be less successful or more hurt than me. I know sometimes for their authoritarian parenting, it's like, well, that was just how I was raised and I'm fine. Right.
Hmm.
Um, but also, what I see sometimes is people who were raised by very permissive or absent parents kind of going that direction because they
Mm,
craved some kind of structure and predictability.
for
Um,
sure.
which to
Yes.
me, again, says like, I want to provide safety for my kids, which is such a loving intention, you
Hmm.
know?
Yep.
I don't want them to feel lost.
Yeah, it's like there's this innate pull that if we were raised by someone overly firm, we either lean into
Hmm.
copying that without really understanding all the reasons, or we go the opposite, like you're saying,
Yeah.
towards the overly kind. I see that dynamic a
Yeah.
lot. Either I did it and it's fine, or I had the opposite and I'm trying to give structure. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Right. There are these universal attachment needs that I think we're playing out in our parenting of the needs that maybe our parents weren't so good about meeting for us.
Would you give a little more, like, what are, say, the 3 to 4 main attachment needs that you see playing out that somehow parenting really pushes that button for couples?
The biggest one I see is safety, right? If I had very permissive parents or very volatile, rigid parents, or just absent parents, right? Safety is the big one. And people try to give their children a sense of safety in a variety of ways. And I often find that people will partner up who had unsafe feeling childhoods, but then
Mm,
how they try to parent is at opposite ends of the spectrum. Whereas when they can kind of get down to, I'm trying to give my child safety and
mm,
predictability, um, we can have a much more fruitful conversation. So that's the first one. I would say just
yeah.
overall safety. I think the other one is acceptance,
Mm,
right? If we only experienced acceptance through performance, when their parents said, I'm proud of you based on a GPA or a sports score, or something performance oriented, um, the wires get kind of tangled up in their brains and they go, oh, acceptance and approval equals high performance.
mm. And do you see that in women? I feel like I see that too in women on a little bit of a shift of the acceptance in terms of like, do you like me? Wanting to be that people
Yes.
pleaser. And so then when a child is like, you're the worst mom ever because you set a boundary, it pushes that acceptance button in a
Yeah.
different realm.
That's a really good correlation of like and acceptance. Yeah, because I do think likability is sort of like a subset of acceptance. And I do think, especially for women, as little girls, really, I think in some ways, as we grow up, we kind of find these different ways to be liked in different realms. But as little girls, that container can be pretty small of what's likable in a little girl. So, like, absolutely is one of the big ones. And then I think this is kind of bigger, but a sense of belonging.
Hmm.
Do I belong? Which I find with a lot of permissive parenting, they're trying to give their children a sense of they belong no matter what,
Hmm.
because they often felt they didn't really belong in their family when they misbehaved.
Yeah, I hear a lot of moms will tell me the phrase, I was just told I was too much.
Oh, yeah.
So
Um,
safety, acceptance, and belonging absolutely makes so much sense. And isn't it interesting? Like I find that some of the interesting dynamics that happen in marriage because of kids is like those triggers may not have been pushed by any of your dynamics of the relationship before children, right? If you had similar
Absolutely.
hobbies, you love camping together, you had similar senses of humor, night
Hmm.
owls or morning people, whatever, that nothing in your dynamic may have even been able to challenge you to test out if you had those three
Yes,
things in any order that were bumping up against each other. And so then I find that parents are like
absolutely.
surprised. Like I loved my husband. I like we got along so well till we had kids. Why are we like pissing each
Right.
other off so much now? Why are we so at odds?
Totally.
I thought we'd be so aligned. But it's like, yeah, because you didn't have something pushing your button of missing out on it, the acceptance, the performance of am I a good enough mom
Right.
or dad? Am I
Right.
having a sense of that belonging, feeling like I fit in
Hmm.
here as a mom doing it right or a dad doing it right?
Hmm. Coming together and really understanding those deeper attachment goals and reactions can be so humanizing and so helpful.
Yes, I'm so grateful for the work you're doing with couples and everything that you've
Oh,
offered
thank
in this
you.
conversation. So please
Yeah.
share how could people follow up with you or the other counselors you supervise under Little Bear Counseling?
Yeah, so you can just look us up at littlebearcounseling.com. We are getting more involved in the community, so you'll probably see us at community events. We also, as a service to the community, we offer free little 1 hour workshops on attachment needs, styles, how they impact us in the workplace and our romantic relationships. I'm going to leave the parenting stuff to you, Flora, because you're so good at it.
Thank you.
And we regularly direct people your way. But that's how people can find us, littlebear.com. And if they have questions about community offerings,
Mm.
please do reach out, or questions just about couples therapy, please reach out. We highly value parenting well together. And so a lot of people think we don't need couples therapy because we're good except for parenting.
Mm.
But I think parenting is just kind of like a gateway into a deeper connection and a more fulfilling partnership.
Oh, I'm so grateful
So,
for your work, and I agree. I just sent some clients your way this week. It's so nice to
oh,
have a
thank
space.
you.
Yes, and I really didn't know you had some of those workshops, so you'll probably see me taking one sometime
Yeah,
soon because I'd love to learn more.
great, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for collaborating with this. And I love what you're doing. And yeah, I look forward to more conversations in the future if you're up for it.
Yes. Thanks so much, Rachel. Friend, if you'd like to leave a review to share how sustainable parenting has been impacting your life, I would be so grateful. It helps others to know what's possible in their families too. And you can do so easily by scrolling to the bottom of all episodes, clicking on that fifth star, and leaving a comment. Also, be sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you regularly get the downloads each week and don't miss a single tool and strategy to be parenting with more kindness and firmness at the same time so parenting finally feels sustainable.